Welcome back. This is Natasha. I'm the millennial.
And this is Anthony, and I'm the grandpa. And we have another grandpa with us today. So one of my oldest friends and mentors, counselor, he goes by a lot of different names. Some may even say legend. John Camacho. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to jump into your story.
All right. Professionally, I was born at Cotter & Company, otherwise known as True Value Company. I'm going on my 38th year there.
38?
Wow.
38 years. 9/9/1985. So I started there.
So your first, first job. We'll have to get into it. Okay.
No. That's good. A lot of people do that. They're like, what, 38 years? But it's something that I chose to do initially, and it's been there, and I've been so happy to be able to go a little old school with it. Basically, grow up within and promote from within. And so from the ground floor and distribution all the way to operations manager today. So it's been a great career.
I love it. You don't hear about people with organizations that long anymore. So the whole purpose of this is to talk about leadership and inspiration. We wanted to talk to you, and we want you to tell us your story. So let's start from the beginning. Where do you want to start? How old? And take us through your journey, and we'll start asking questions.
Wow. All right. Actually, born in Los Gatos, 1964. Don't put them together. I come from a family of 7, and a wonderful mother and father, who my mom's full-time job was watching all 7 kids, right? Which is a full-time job. My dad was in the Marine Corps, learned a lot of his work ethic from the Marine Corps, and basically was able to work up within a company in a civil engineering outfit and was able to provide and protect for us. So we started in San Jose from the Bay Area and then came up to Woodland in 1972. Of course, I was only 8 years old, still learning to do, the normal things that an 8-year-old does, like love baseball, my Giants and all. Grew up, went to school, graduated high school, and then didn't really know what I was going to do. I mean, I think
like
that's
most of us.
Like most of us, But yet somehow the universe kind of showed me I was going to be a family man, and I think I've always wanted to be a family man. I've always loved kids, but then I thought, well, how am I going to have kids if I don't have a career, right? So started going to junior college, started to apply different places, and had a baby. So kind of changed my life for the better.
Oh.
And of course, with my wife, my wonderful wife now of 35 years, we were able to raise 3 kids. My daughter Kelly, my daughter Emily, and my son Casey, who are all very career driven. It's been a wonderful journey. But I will tell you, one of the early things I learned professionally and personally was, how do you measure success? And to me, it was easy. It's the degree of your happiness, right? Mm. And what that takes is balance. You got to have balance. And I think to this day, I still have to have balance. You can't work 23 hours and play 1 or sleep, right? It's 8, 8, and 8. But the one thing also was purpose. I had a purpose. I had to provide and protect for my family. And so that was easy for me. I don't need a new car. I'm going to provide for them to have good educations and be good community citizens. But professionally, I didn't know I was going to grow with this company. I didn't know really, was I going to get into management and learn how, the whole logistics setups of distribution, and I did. And so over the years, I was able to get promoted to team lead, to supervisor, to superintendent, and then quickly to operations manager, which I was like, I'm leading a team of, at one time, 213 associates, which is, for a distribution center, was a lot. But then the other kind of universe came to me as well was, man, how wonderful is leadership, right? You get to inspire and influence others to not only do good work at work and learn and grow and develop, but outside of work, be good people in your relations at home and be a good mother and father. And I think to this day, that motivates me just every day to get up in the morning, is that I have that ability.
Yeah, and I've known you 25, going on 25 years now, so dating both of us. So when you go back to that, your early years at True Value and going into that first promotional position in leadership, did you always have this outlook? Was this the outlook you always had, or were you young, running and grinding? What was it like back then?
That's a great question. It was hard. Being a leader in the beginning, I thought was, hey, you get the title, you can just run with it. No, there's lots of perceptions and reality with the workforce, right? And I can remember one of many moments is that we had the survey, and it was an annual survey, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to do great. And I had the survey come back, and it was something about approving vacations on time, something like that. And I'm like, I'm the best at it. I create documents, and I get it back timely. And then one of my managers at the time said, hey, the lesson is you're learning that sometimes it's perception, sometimes it's reality, but you're listening to them, right? They're giving you valuable feedback. And those were one of many lessons I learned over the years as being a young supervisor, is just, wow, other than having the values of walking the walk, right? Showing up every day and taking development opportunities. But that was one that really, really stuck with me early. When
I'll humble you a little bit.
Humble
You get a little feedback about yourself,
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
whoa, okay, what? I'm not the greatest. What, can I ask you, some of the leaders in your life, so it sounds like you went through a few different stages at your work, and any role models, leaders that you were maybe emulating, or role models that you were kind of taking things from, or did that come throughout?
Another great question. You guys are getting good at this. I learned early on that I had to learn from everybody, whether you were good or not so good. Mm. And I can honestly say I can almost remember the ones that were not so good that I remember the most. Mm-hmm. I could remember one time an ops manager, and I was a floor associate at the time. He walked right by me like I didn't exist. Mm. And I basically said, if I ever get in that position, I know what I'm not going to do. Because people are so invaluable. They're your greatest asset, right? You can have all the greatest processes, but I remember that, and of course some of my peer supervisors I worked with over the years that were just not so good, integrity-wise, not doing the right thing. And that's big, especially when you're a leader. You have to walk it, and you have to be sincere. So some of the other ones were I respected a lot was candid feedback, the no fear conversation. Mm. You don't want to talk about it, but you got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Not that it was any destructive, but it maybe wasn't so comfortable. Well, your numbers aren't here or whatever. You had to talk about it. What's going on? Talk about root causes. And so I love the no fear feedback that has to become with good leadership. And I think some of my leaders over the years were maybe too candid.
No.
And do you have, when you look back, do you have a specific mentor that stands out that's in your hands? This individual helped me grow or get me to the next level? Or have you had many throughout your career?
I would say many. I guess my mentor was my father. I know I'm going back personally, but he was just the guy who had the work ethic, right? He was a positive guy. He was punctual, and he got busy. So, those 3 Ps that I always tell my associates, which I call my employees associates, you're positive, you're productive, you're punctual. And to me, that equals purpose, right? It's why you do what you do. So I don't know if I've had any really professional mentors. So I will say there was a teacher I had in high school that those ones you remember.
Yeah.
He was just the kindest individual. And he ran a special ed class. And of course, when you're in high school, that, why are they doing that? They different disabilities and stuff. I just loved him because he was so kind, and he was a great athlete, a great educated teacher. So the teacher and my dad, I think, probably had the most influence as a mentor of the why I get up every day.
I love it. It's one of the reasons why we decided to do this is when we talk about people that have an influence and impact, just thinking back to your father, obviously, but a teacher that just had an impact that you talk about, I want to say 40 years later, 45 years later.
45 years later, yeah.
Interesting. So where did you come up with the 3 Ps as we're going through your career? Where did that come from?
Man, early supervisor, it was about how can I teach the younger applicants that are greenhorns that come on your force the way of the work environment. And I just kept saying, well, you got to have an attitude. You have to have great attitude, right? And from that attitude, you want to come to work. You're friendly. You're receptive to learning, right? And so I've basically just kind of had that template of punctuality. So you have your attitude. You got to show up every day, right? So I've had instances where you have attendance policies and stuff. You're going to let me go after there was a train or I got a wreck. And I go, no, it wasn't about that. It was about the 9 times before that you didn't come to work, right? And so you try to you want them to win. You want to invest in people. And so you're positive, you're punctual, and then productive is you don't want to be low man on the totem pole. And I always use, sports analogies a lot with I don't want to say kids, but I can now. I'm that old, right? So I say, look, if you don't go to practice, you're not going to get to play. You might get cut from the team. So if you go to practice, you got to learn the plays. And if you don't execute, you're going to be not playing very much. So I try to get them to understand that, and I did add the purpose P, is why are you coming here? There's a reason why you signed up to come here, that you got to take care of your family. You want to buy your car or truck, or you want to go on vacation, or you want to go to a Kings game, playoff game. I mean, whatever it is, there's a reason why you come to work. And to me, it motivates me to help others. And, you're not always going to win because there are all the risks coming in the door. But when you invest as a leader, no matter what it is, whatever business it is, financials or distribution or whatever, you have to invest in them. And it's got to be sincere. And I try to come the no fear accountability with them and say, look, now the ball's in your court. Now you have to do it. And if they don't, it's already been said. And it's an easy parting ways if it goes that way.
So when you think back to that first role you took and you started to learn this, how did you develop your craft? And how did you develop John? How did this start to form? Was it through your dad, or was it through books, or was it through trial and error? How did it start to come to fruition? Wow,
that's probably a lot of the relationship building I had professionally in the network, working with others at different levels, in my arena, the supply chain. But I would say the craft itself it's been tenured because I've been able to build those relationships and learn from others. Because I often say there's not a day goes by in my position that I don't learn something new. Capital expenditures or whatever it is, it's always something that you're learning. And that, to me, that's, again, motivating. So what's also been a part of it is learning that as a leader, you need to be a good mentor, you need to be a good coach, you need to be a good trainer, a good teacher. All those things come into play. And I'm a sponge. I might not come across as it, but I'm going to learn it, and then I'm going to pass it on to somebody else. So I would say, a lot of courses internally, what we have at our company, True Value University, and a lot of different leadership modules, DDI, and those have been over. But really, the interactions I've had with the people have been probably the most beneficial with me.
So when you think back as you were developing in those relationships, can you touch on some of the missteps that you took, or when you read somebody wrong and maybe led them down a path? Because we learn from our mistakes, and so it can't all be positive. There had to have been some challenges along the way, and you look back and you're like, you know what, if I could redo that 25 years ago, the person I am today, that conversation would have been different, but I learned from it.
Yeah, I would say early on it was all communication. How you came across about whatever the issue might have been. Was it an accuracy issue, efficiency issue, attendance? You didn't come across as the way you should have, and then you kind of sit on it for a while. And then you learn what the win is, are you going to humble yourself and say, I didn't probably come across the way I needed to come across in that conversation. And, I do apologize, but I'm going to learn from it. So humbling yourself is something I've done, and also building others in the same time and building that trust, which is another leadership, trait that you got to have is trust. But yeah, those have come over the years, but, being the no fear up front, you made the error and then you correct it somehow and then you build from there.
Oh, and as you look back on your career, I think it's fascinating. A lot of people talk about their lessons, but in the rear view. So it's so much easier to look back and be like, wow, that was really good. I should have appreciated it at the time, or maybe it was really bad. Oh, I should have learned from it. So throughout, do you think that you learned those lessons in the moment, or realized, even if you go back to your teacher in high school, did you realize how impactful he was at the time, or how impactful the lesson was? Or is it something that you kind of looked back and said, oh, that was the time I learned something?
I'd say both, but I don't know if it was all there in the beginning, but there was something there. And I'm an emotional marshmallow inside, so I let it go, but I also want to do what's right. So yeah, those lessons have kind of evolved, and I guess in my position, which I really relish in, it's really people driven. It's life. I almost consider myself sometimes a life coach, right? Is this job for you?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. That's okay, and then if you don't like this job so much, you owe yourself to go get happy somehow. How are you going to do that? Are you going to go to school? Are you going to try for that other job? Because it's not a good match right now. So, you have to have those candid conversations, which I love, by the way.
Oh, it's taken me a minute to get there. I don't know if I'd say I love it, but I'm realizing, okay, it's okay to have the conversation, might as well be honest, get it out of the way up front,
Have you always loved it, or did you grow into loving it?
Wow. I guess I'd probably grow into loving it, right? But when I think of the big picture, and everybody has a different big picture, that it's going to be your legacy you leave, right? What are you going to leave? And so I don't mind going there, and just going and growing from it. Hopefully they're going to grow from it a little bit more, but no, we'll both grow from it.
I think that's what I struggle. So sometimes their perception, right? You can have the best intent, or you could really believe in what you're telling them. And sometimes I notice, I'm like, oh, we're on two way different pages. They do not understand where I'm coming from. And so I think that's hard. I can be as candid as I can, but if they don't take that in, I think that's what makes it very hard. If they see themselves as one way and you see it differently, I think it's hard.
Well, there was a author of a great book that I read, and he basically said, try to seek to understand. And that's always a good leader, is trying to seek, where are they coming from? What is going on, right? Yeah. I always use the analogy of maybe just a newborn, which I have right now, brand new newborn. Is the baby hungry? Is it tired? Is it thirsty? Is it sick? Or is it just a baby, right? There's something going on, right? And you're always going to have it. And that's when I say I love the kind of the or the characteristics of the emotions, emotional intelligence kind of, but where's it coming from? Yeah. Why, and you usually got to dive to the root cause to find out what's going on about that. But seek to understand is a big one.
That's good advice.
It is. So let's talk about new teams and new members coming to your team. So as you moved into these different positions and you took on a new team or a new role, or you have new members coming in, how did you talked about creating trust? How did you create trust? take us through your process of taking on a new team and bringing on new people and that leadership role?
Well, number one is letting them know they're not a number. Right. I mean, if they know they're a number, they're just going to be a number. If there's some type of attachment or accountability, they're going to buy in. So, for instance, we've hired, 10 in the last couple of months. It's like, I want to talk to them. I don't interview them, right? I want to know something about you. And then I want to throw my 2 cents on what the expectations are, what the benefits of the company are, what the culture's like, what, all the good and, the learning kind of curves that you're going to have. I kind of set it on the table. And then, one of the also candid parts is I let them know at the very end, after I pour my heart out and say, this is where we're going. Do you want to get on board the energy bus? Come on, get on. So then I just say, hey, but do me a favor. If this job's not for you, it's okay. Do you need to think about it? Because you're at risk. And I don't want you to waste my time, and I don't want to waste yours, right? So think about it, right? Because this is where you're going, and this is where we want to go, and I want you to be a part of my team. So, putting my fingerprints from the top leaders down is real important, and that's what I do.
That's incredible. So I keep coming back to, was it learned? Did you have a leader that did that? Or was it trial and error that you found this works well, this keeps my people engaged? How did that develop?
Oh, there's a couple things, key metrics that have been what I've worked on over the years. And one is a survey, engagement survey, and it has all the different questions and stuff. And then turnover. Turnover is costly. I don't want to turn another and another. And trust me, during the pandemic, it was crazy. In, out. I'm like, oh no. And there was other factors, obviously, with that. So I learned that was a key performance indicator of one of our, distribution goals. And so what was I going to do? And it's really one word. It's engagement. You got to have engagement. In my case, you got to have an open door policy. I'm not this guy you can't, communicate with. Remember, it's open door. Come talk to me. What do you need? How can I help? Because it's investing. And those turnover is obviously the key one, but the survey would tell you some things that are the reality. Maybe they're not getting the tools they need, right? Or maybe they're not asking, how can I get them to that level? Which again, retains your employees and lowers your costs.
So I've talked to leaders in the past that take the same approach and they'll give me, a word of caution and say, be careful, you're going to get burned. You're investing this time in so many people, and you're going to have the one or two that just go sideways, and you say something that's taken out of context. Next thing you know, you're in HR, you're trying to explain what you meant. So have you run into any of those challenges in being too transparent and open, or have you been okay so far?
It's been okay, but sometimes you're just not going to win. It's just, you made it, for whatever reason, nothing lined up and it just didn't happen. Right? It just, but not a whole bunch.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
It must be the way you deliver it.
Well, back to that building relationships too, from, having a new associates meeting, which we did early on, is we're not going to talk business here. Tell me what you did. What are your hobbies?
Yeah.
Tell me something nobody knows about you. Yeah. That's all you're going to ask? Yeah. And it kind of, then they get a little bit empowered that, hey, I am somebody. And I do have a gentleman that never talks. And I have to do everything to open his door. 4-year degree, plays the sax, but he's one of our best workers. And it's like, I try, but it's just the role he fits, and you understand that.
Yeah. You understand his why and his day to day.
Yeah.
So you've been at your company for a long time. So I think it's interesting to bring in new people. Are there others who have been there as long as, have you had staples that have worked with you for that length, or?
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, really?
Yeah, my office manager is 22 years, and most of my staff are in the 20s and one in the 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I think it's one thing to bring in new. I think I'm in a space where I'm starting to see those that you've worked with for a long time go. And that's a different type. I think it's just a different dynamic. So I was curious.
I think about that, and I've had that used against me in prior directors, saying that you have the highest tenured workforce, you should have the best, yada, yada. Not understanding the dynamics of California, yada. But I think when you start with that engagement and culture, and you say it's the place of choice, you want to work there, right?
Yeah.
It's where people, the employer of choice, they want to work there. Why would they work at, these other three DCs? Because it's a family, it's a safe culture, right? Will you have fun? Who doesn't like the fun factor?
Yeah.
Right? You got to have fun working, and you can still get busy and have fun and be accurate and be efficient and be safe, and it's proven. At least in my work.
Well, you're humble, so I'll say it. It's a testament to your leadership and the culture that you've created, that you've had that tenured of a group. Because there's an old adage that says people don't leave their employer, they leave their boss, and they stay for their boss as well. So congratulations. That is a long time for a lot of people. What are some of the biggest challenges when you think back through your career that you've had to face, and how have you managed through them?
You know, the biggest challenges have been two things. Real issues, real people issues. Couple of them came to place. We had a gentleman, I don't know how long, 10 years ago, very loved associate, took his own life. It was heavy. So as a leader, I wasn't the ops manager at the time. I had another gentleman, and for some reason he got too emotional and went to the side, and I got right in there with the workforce. It was a general meeting, and I said, it's terrible. Nobody can take it back, and you're going to think about what you could have done differently, but I tell you, this is what you can do for him right now, is build relationships at home, enhance those, because life is so fragile. It could be taken against you. So that those moments have been real difficult in mine, and I can talk a couple other accidents, but the real issues where they're people.
Yeah.
And probably another one on a side note is development. I think development is always something that it's a work in progress. Because usually, you might have the good process guy. Oh, I can do all the data, but man, he can't talk to anybody, right?
Met him.
Yeah. So you work on soft skills, and you just try to give them the tools that they can build relationships with others, and that's really what they call teamwork, right? It's just about working with others and how well you do that.
So it leads me into the next question that I've asked in all of these conversations is, you have these stressful times when you're at work, or on the flip side, you have stressful times at home. So how do you separate the two? How do you not bring that home, or how do you manage it when you bring it home? And then how do you not bring it to work when you lose a loved one, or you have family, whatever the case may be? How do you separate the two, or do you?
Or balance?
Well, I'll give you a couple. I had 8 months of a real tool of let's just say that, a director, and it was tough. I could not turn it off. I'd take it home, and I started thinking, what is it? What is that magic pill, or what is that magic? And I figured it out, and it was quick. Unfortunately, it was a little bit longer than 8 months. It's the grateful flow, right? It's the grateful flow, right? When you talk about what you're grateful for, and I know how simplistic it sounds, it's called an upward spiral. It gets rid of those things that are taking you down, because everybody's going to have those in their life, right? I didn't meet a deadline, or, I got caught in traffic, but, it's the way we look at things, and you have to start with the grateful flow. And I've used this many times in some of my community presentations. It's easy to talk about the car crash, right? Terrible, just terrible. Somebody got hurt, somebody died, just terrible. The reality is what? Millions went to work, dropped their kids off at school, and did all the things they were going to do. But it's not news. So to me, it's there's just too many grateful things that you have. And that helped me separate it, because I get you. There's home is not so good and work's okay. And it's you go back and forth. But what are you grateful for? Write those 21 things, 21 straight days of 3 things that you're grateful for. Maybe it's coffee, pillow, and donuts one day. And then all of a sudden you change your neural networks. And it's a beautiful thing because it works. And then you become a little bit more resilient, let's just say. And it happens, everybody. It's normal. But are you going to stay down, or are you going to bounce back up?
Where'd that come from? Where did the grateful flow? Is that yours? Did you read it? How did it develop?
Both. My mother and my father were extremely positive. And I'm going to say we didn't have a great deal, but we were always happy. We had meals, a roof over our head. We always played outside, all the good things. So I know a lot of it came from my family. But a lot of the book reading too, I can name a bunch of books which have been incredibly helpful to just make you think differently,
Yeah, an investment in you.
Oh, it's powerful.
And sometimes there are little lessons. I remember once I was like, well, what if this goes wrong? And what if this happens? And he was like, you know what? Write down 10 things. What if it, and they all have to be positive. So I was like, okay. So I did it, and I do it to this day. But it reminds me of that. It's the same. It's little things. It just reminds you, refreshes your brain.
So let's talk about your stewardship. So we know your career, your leadership within your family and your community is massive. So I want to talk about that. And I know you're going to be humble, so I'm going to pull out as much as I can. But tell us about how you give back, and let's dive into that for a while.
Well, I was influenced by my parents. Just wonderful giving people. And they didn't ask for anything other than just to do the deed. There was a place called the Sheltered Workshop that my mom used to go for adults with disabilities. And they were all, in their 40s and 50s. And she said, you want to help me? I said, sure. So I go and help she'd always donate food all the time. And I go to this thing. Santa Claus comes in the room, and these adults, with disabilities, they're just crying. And I'm like, I get it.
Oh.
I get it. And so from there, it just springboarded into, True Value Company being a big steward of all their communities. I was able to get recruited for the United Way around the campaign, probably 15 years, was past president a couple different times. But man, just seeing what's behind the doors in your community and the needs, I was awoken again. Like, oh my gosh, I am not worthy. Look at all I have, right? And the nonprofits that do such a great job each and every day in every community, I fell in love with them. And they're not making great money, but they're getting the reward of giving back. And from there, it's just, it went to the True Value Foundation, which now benefits the Boys and Girls Club in Chicago. And now we have one in our community, which today they gave a very fat check to for educational enrichment. And I'm like, it's just a winning combo that I've really adopted, and it's fuel for my tank. It's really fuel for your tank.
So you have your work, you're doing a lot there, you have a lot of family, you're giving back. How are you balancing all of this, and how are you?
That's my question. How do you do it?
Yeah, how are you bringing this John to everybody all the time?
Well, it's easy because I love to do it, right? But, I have now 4 grandbabies now, so that actually is a big, because I can't get enough of them.
I'm so excited you're here, because finally I have another grandpa.
If he's grandpa, what's that make me?
Well, I have a joke. Okay, here it goes. What do you get when Anthony invites a friend to the podcast? 2 grandpas and 1 millennial.
Lord.
I've been waiting.
She's been holding on to that one.
Yeah, I do think back to the balancing. It's so important. It's so important for you each day, your health, spiritual health, mental health, physical health. It's good for relationships. And sometimes you just have to say no, or you just have to pencil things the right way. And it's not about, maybe at all costs getting the highest goal in work, which I know you can strive for it, but again, it's balance. You got to have that balance, and it's a work in progress.
So what do you do for burnout? You're human, so there has to be that burnout factor. What's your outlets? How are you? Where is your service an outlet?
Yeah, it is, but I'd say just really social interactions. I mean, you have to have a circle of friends that you can bend their ear about. Mine is golf, and they say, oh, you're a good golfer? I go, no, but I like to have fun doing it, right? And part of it is you laugh, and again, the social interactions, and the vacations. My wife's trying to get me into hiking, and she's just a beast. And I tell her, hey, slow down, I'm not walking out. And she laughs at me, but she broke her foot like about 2 months ago, so I've been able to walk faster than her now.
Happy about that one.
But yeah, it's balance. You got to have that balance.
Good.
I think you made a good point, or a you statement, filling up your tank. So a lot of people, I think they I can't find the time, or I want to, but I'm tired. And I think that they forget when you do something like that, that it actually, the feelings and, all the things. So sometimes that gives you a little bit of energy as well.
Good energy.
Yeah,
good energy
exactly.
For work, to all those challenges you have, or the quotas, or the corrective action, or the coaching, or the development. You got to take care of yourself. You don't, I when you get on a plane, they say what? You got to take your oxygen first before you take care of anybody else, right?
Yeah.
It's true. Take care of yourself first, and then you can take care of your team. And the off switch has to happen, and a good off. And then what do you do? And it might be, today I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to go garden, or I'm going to go water the lawn. That fills your tank too.
I don't know about gardening, John, but I'll take your word for it.
By mowing the lawn, I meant.
Good recovery. Let's talk about family. So you have a massive family, and I know you do a lot with your family. You've invited my family to be part of yours, and you manage a lot of different trips, and Siskiyou is one of them, where it seems like it's 100 people every year. How did you become one of the leaders of your family? And maybe I'm being presumptuous. From the outside in, it looks like you're one of the leaders, but how did that all take place?
Well, particular in the McLeod area, that I have a big reunion every year. I just love everybody having a good time. I love the area, and I love people creating that new bonds, new friends. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I guess we started years ago with a small golf tournament, and then before you know it, I was like, I love everybody, so let's all get together and let's have a good time. And again, it's the filling of the tank, right? So 1 week a year we go fill our tank, overflow our tank, right? Which again gets you to the point where you can handle those tough moments in your life, right? And we've had them. My father passed away in 2001, 68, way too early.
Way too early.
What a pillar, though. What a great, just a good human being. He was kind, right? And what I've done is just try to share that with other people. Just be kind, just be a good human being, work hard, all the things we're supposed to do. Because I do believe that good outweighs all that garbage that's going on these days, or will be tomorrow or yesterday,
Yeah, and I've got to meet probably most of your family, and your mom and dad. I've been blessed to meet both of them, and they're both wonderful people. Let's talk about your dad for a minute. His story is pretty incredible, not for a minute, for a couple of minutes. As much as you want to share, there's some really good stories in there that I'd love for you to share.
Yeah. My dad joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, went into Korea, and learned a lot. It was a learning lesson from him. He came from a kind of a rougher part in the Sacramento area, but he came out of the Marine Corps with a zest for, I want to do well, right? He had actually gotten he was a very good cartoonist at the time, and he actually got a letter from Warner Brothers at the time, because, he could do Bugs Bunny and the whole 9 yards. But he came out, and he always wanted a family, kind of like me right away. So I kind of replicated my efforts after him. But as soon as he got, he was a sign painter. Then he became, worked for a civil engineer outfit until he retired. But it all goes back to that Marine Corps, because he learned so much, and he had so many bonds with the people that in such a short time, in Korea 50-51, that I didn't know. I was so young, and I didn't know till probably later the bonds that he had with these fellow Marines, and until I started going to these reunions, right? So I went to San Francisco and San Diego, and I'd go with him, and I was like, whoa, this is his family. Family. Wow. And these were just his truest brothers. But it all started there with my dad. But again, he was this kind, generous, loving person who provided and protected and developed his family. Now they're, all my 6 brothers and sisters are all very educated and have great jobs and give back to the community. And, he just did a good job, you know?
Yeah, he was a great man. So I got to meet him when I was in the Marine Corps as well as Amy, my wife, and he was just so generous with his time. Do you mind telling the story about when he went back to Korea?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, you don't leave a Marine behind. I mean, obviously that's something that the Marines have deep in their soul. So he actually was studying Horseshoe Ridge, which was an area that they had a lot of remains that weren't recovered. And he would spend hours looking at maps, working with the Hawaii team. I can't remember, it was the team, the recovery team. And finally he went back to Korea, and they actually found an Eagle Globe and anchor and some remains on the Horseshoe Ridge. So it was I mean, he didn't have to do this.
Wow,
And
yeah.
he drove it himself pretty much. And I still have that picture of the Eagle Globe and anchor from the hill that it was recovered. But me not being a Marine, I still understood how important it was that we're not leaving anybody behind. It was just incredible to this day when I think about what he did.
And how old was he when he went back?
Oh, in his early 50s.
Yeah, so 25 years, maybe 30 after being there.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I love it. I love it.
Well, you'd know because you're a Marine. You could get it.
And that, so you talk very highly of your dad and the Marines. Did you ever think your life was going to go that way, or was that
Never.
was a no?
Never.
A hard no?
Never. I don't know. It just, my uncle was in the Army. His brother was killed in World War II in the Battle of the Bulge. And I always understood, it wasn't what he wanted, because he did it. But it wasn't something I ever considered. Maybe I needed it. I don't know.
Any of your siblings?
No.
He just got a big buddy that was a Marine.
Yeah, I got a big buddy. But I
Who's
am.
that? Just kidding.
I am actually a son of a Legionnaire now. I just joined earlier this year. And I'm getting involved in the American Legion in a place that I love, McLeod, and getting to know some of the veterans and how to help them. And it's
Very
really
cool.
rewarding for me. And it's like, okay, what can I do? And also my grandfather was in World War I. So there's a lot of history with that. But to me, it's like, I get, motivated. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what can I do? And I found all these old pictures, which I got to show you, by the way,
Yeah.
of when the American Legion started in France. And my grandfather was there in France, 1917 and 1918, when
Wow.
they started the American Legion.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's I like research and I like
Yeah, it's
history.
special. Yeah. So, do you have more?
Go ahead.
Oh, I a little bit kind of to your family, so I can tell that your parents are very impactful to you. You have your own children. I think you've already maybe answered this, but curious, biggest life lessons you want your kids to take away from you? Deep.
That is deep.
Had to do it too.
I'm looking at Kelly or Emily or Casey. No.
Was it different?
No. It's just you got to find your happiness. Find your happiness. I found mine. I am incredibly blessed, like I told you, financially with my marriage to my wife Lisa for 35 years. It's just I have it all, but you could have all that and not be happy. And so when I say, how do you measure success? It's by the degree of your happiness. Are you working 20 hours and you make 20 million? Great. Are you happy? No. Well, then find your happiness. And I truly can say that if there's one thing that I would love them to find is find the happy zone. It's not always going to be there, but make it more happy than some of the challenges you have.
I love that.
I do too. And so, along the same lines, but maybe switching a little bit, when you think about outside of your family, the mentorship, how have you become mentors to others? Have you been a mentor to me? Have you done it knowingly? Did you grow into that? What are your thoughts on mentorship?
Well, there's kind of a motivation to help others, so I like it. So I'm not going to say I like conflict, but I like helping others. I think it's just come with the territory, I guess. I mean, I can't put a finger on it, in the nonprofit world, there'll be somebody that, that you can help or you can guide and direct, and that's kind of how it starts. And, I wish I could do more, and that's always the deal that you can, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, can't put a finger on it.
Yeah. You have a question over there, Natasha? I have a very important question for him.
Oh, go for it.
So, one of the most honest men that I know. And so we're going to take a survey after this, and you're going to tell a story, and we're going to see if people buy this. So one time you borrowed my truck.
I had no idea where this was going. I was like, what is the question?
Okay.
He's going to tell the
still
story,
don't.
and we're going to take a poll to see if this is BS or if this really happened.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait.
Okay, so what kind of truck do you have? A Nissan? Was it a Nissan?
Mazda. It was a Mazda.
Okay, so at the time, I needed to go take some stuff to the dump. And I'm like, well, should I ask him to borrow his truck? And I don't like to ask for anything. And so I knew he had a truck, and I don't even have that much stuff. And I know Emily was with me, my daughter. I said, okay, Emily, you want to go with me? Yeah. So I threw whatever was in the truck, and we just, after Anthony graciously said, go ahead, no problem, here's the keys, go, whatever. He probably gave it to me, the truck. Anyhow, so we're going to the dump, and we come back on West Street, and we're coming back, and we're looking, and I see this big black crow coming across the freeway or the road, and I look, and there's this walnut, and he drops it, and we go right, and it shatters the windshield. It shatters his front windshield, and I'm like, Emily, did you see that? Because nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe me that it hit it right. And I was like, you're not going to believe me. And they're laughing, and I'm like, oh my God, I borrowed his truck. And I shattered his windshield. And when I came back to the house, I was like, you're not going to believe me. And they were laughing like, oh, sure, that happened. And if it wasn't for Emily.
Yes, I like to give him a hard time about it. I think I got a 12-pack out of it.
Oh, you had to have. I'm sure you did. Yeah, that was good.
Oh my goodness.
So before we wrap up, did you have any more questions?
I think maybe you answered it. I like to ask if you could talk to your 30-year-old self, what advice you would give. But I don't know if it's maybe the same as what you tell your children or if it'd be different. I guess if it was you, maybe work-wise. How about that?
That's a great question.
Professionally. Yeah.
I would have probably climbed the ladder a little sooner, so I would have said, take a little bit more risk.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was wise enough, maybe wise enough to say, what's going to happen? You fall, you get back up. I think risk is, calculated risks are better, but, take more risk.
That's a really good one. Easier when you have some good leaders that are helping you,
True.
move along that.
True.
But yeah, that's really good. Thank you.
You bet.
For sure.
Anything that you want to close out before we go to Inspired Thursday? Any words of advice? You've given us a lot.
It goes back to, and this is my latest kind of, not fad, my latest enrichment, let's just say enrichment, is just the neural networks upstairs. We have all the stuff in the world that we can, mood stabilizer upon mood stabilizers, including other mood stabilizers. But you can fight it with that grateful stuff. It works. You could read books all day long, and they'll tell you all these studies that were done without them work. So let them work, and work on them. Don't give up.
Excellent.
That's very good.
Well, let's go right into Inspire after that one.
I know, it kind of set me up perfectly. I'll jump in. So my this inspiration, I guess this week is my John. So my boyfriend's name is John. We have been together for a long time now, and we have grown a lot together, obviously through our careers and through our personal life. And right now, currently, he's dealing with some family things his mom needs, taking care of. She has MS and has some health problems, and it has not been easy. And so to watch somebody, go through that, and it's a struggle, but to stay positive and to when it comes down to it, that you got to do what you have to do. And so he's been doing that lately, and still finds time to, dance around the house and make fun of me for whatever that's worth. And so we still have a good time. So just this positivity through some hard times right now has been inspiring. So that's mine, John.
Really
Love
good.
you.
Really good.
Yeah.
Walk through it. Don't run through it. Just walk through it. That's good. My turn.
Yeah, John.
Oh, easy. I have 3 sisters who are doing the same deal with my mom. She's had some health issues, and they've inspired me. When you have somebody who, incapacitated, you have to do all these things that I'm not comfortable doing, and they have just been there day and night. And I don't say it enough to them, but they inspire me to do more. And I'm very, very grateful to have them as my sisters, as well as helping my mom through what she's going through now.
Yeah, very similar situation. And to hear some of the things, or to see it, just caretakers and things in general, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's gives you a whole different perspective. So yeah, it's very, very true.
Incredible. So mine, I'll close it out. I think that, John, you're my inspiration for Inspire Thursday. I mean,
Oh, look at that.
I've known you now, like I said, 25 years. When we go back and I think through our relationship, you literally the marriage counselor out in the front yard when I was a young 22-year-old with Amy, and you've mentored me throughout my life and my career, and you've always been supportive, and I watch what you do with others, and just this conversation in general. If people aren't inspired by you, then we need to work with them, and we need to get you some personal one-on-one time with them. But I love you. I appreciate you coming over here and having the conversation with us, and everything you've done for me and my family, and I know my entire family loves you as well. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I love you too, just as much.
So with that, Natasha will take us to the close.
Close us out. All right. Gramps, Millennial, and John out.